everybody, it's NoirNerd, and a bit stuck for ideas in the minute, so I thought I'd just do a sort of reaction video thing for 15 or 10 minutes or something. Just seeing what comes up straight up in my recommended on YouTube. I've already done a video like this before, so it should be quite interesting in some respect. I mean, I do like Ben Alwood's channel on Dan Abramoff. It's quite interesting, but that's like an hour long, so I won't click on that. Let's just try it. Let's go. It's like I don't know, Russian roulette of reaction videos. We've got something about American Psycho, some heavy metal. It's just the usual stuff. Okay, let's just have a look at Chris Sean. It's just like a short video, 58 seconds long. It's quite easy to react to, I suppose. See what his salary. Yeah, have I got the? Let me just check. I've got the audio on. No, I haven't. There we go. So put the desktop audio on. Try that now. So this is Chris Sean. My salary history as a self-taught web developer.
Throughout my first 5 years as a web developer. My first job paid me $45,000 a year as a junior web developer in California. That job,
I assume that's dollars, I suppose, which would probably in English, because I'm English, British, it would be something like 20 something K, I think, roughly 20. Yeah, it's less than 25. It's probably 22,000 in English pounds, I think. So that's, yeah.
I was working on basic things like HTML, CSS, and jQuery. That was it. They hired me.
That is basically the equivalent in the UK as well of a starting junior salary.
Zero experience. Now, after working as a junior developer for 2 years, I went to my second job as a mid-level developer working with HTML, CSS, jQuery, PHP, Laravel, writing SQL statements, and more importantly, above that, writing a bunch of customized emails, which is so hard. They paid me $70K a year. After working there for
that's sort of, yeah, that's basically 36,000, I think, roughly. Sounds about right. It's interesting they jumped from like a junior role to sort of, well, I mean, a sort of 35 is really mid-level. Yes, that's about right.
About 2 years, one company,
I don't know, I think I'm going to react
to move to Virginia paid me about $85K a year. And then when I quit that job after just 6 months due to a toxic manager, I quit that job, and now at my current position, and by the way, I started my own businesses, now I make $220,000 a year. And this is just the beginning. I generally believe that within the next 2 to 3 years, my income will go anywhere between $350K to $500,000 a year. You can do it too.
Okay, so I mean, salary is interesting. It's definitely something to be.
I'll be sharing with you how my
to try and, you know, sort of grow it and everything. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like, Chris Sean's sort of interesting actually in terms of the YouTube tech community. I like the things I like about Chris Sean actually is that he's very honest about his mental health journey and his struggles. He's not like, he's self-taught as well, which is quite interesting. He's one of the first tech YouTubers I started following, actually, to be honest. I like how he's honest about the mental health issues he's had, which I think is a very, you know, commendable thing, really. I like him. He's nice, you know. I know he's had struggles and everything, and he documents that quite a lot, but I think I sort of appreciate that sort of honesty. And he's a very honest person in a lot of ways. What else we got that I can react to, I suppose? Coding Regrets, so I like Clement's channel. So
what's up, everybody? How's it going? In this video, I want to share with you the 4 biggest regrets that I have as a software engineer.
Oh, we all have them for sure. Like, we all have those regrets. So this should be
regrets will either help you maybe avoid finding yourself in the same situation as I am, or perhaps
learn from the voice of a wizard. Coding wizard. There's nice screens you got in the background, honestly.
You've already made the mistakes that I've made, and you are going to relate to them. Either way, hopefully you take something out of this video. And with that said, let's jump into the first regret, which is that I wish I had started to code earlier in my life. A lot of you know I learned to code immediately after college, and I will say I'm the biggest proponent that anybody can learn to code at any time in their life, in their 20s, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, you get the idea. However, of course, just like with any other skill, the earlier you start to learn it and practice it, the better. And so,
yeah, that's so interesting actually, because I mean, often when you hear of all like, these big, the big tech guys like Bill Gates or people who, well, they're not really programmers anymore, but they started off as programmers essentially. They were, and like Elon Musk, I think also, they all started programming like from what 14 or 13 or something. There was that. So I guess there was in a sense that stereotypical nerd or geek sort of figure who's I never coded one out myself when I was in there. I was exposed to it in a very, very basic sense, the web, pretty much. I was exposed to as a teenager. But the only person I ever remember talking about code was someone in my school who learned HTML, knew HTML, and I think it's basically just HTML, how to structure markup in a page. But yeah, I wouldn't really say that would be a regret. That I think the majority of software engineers and developers don't start till 20 or something. I started about I messed around with code as a teenager, but I only really started properly learning it when I was like college level.
I just think back.
College is like higher education, but not university in the UK.
Back, if I had started to code, let's say at the beginning of high school, I could have had 8 more years to practice the skill, to work on projects, on entrepreneurial endeavors, and yeah, I just regret not having done that. The good news is that, like a lot of other skills, I do think that you can catch up in coding pretty quickly to people who started before you, but nonetheless, it does remain a regret for me. So if you're young, considering learning how to code, do not hesitate. You won't regret it. Now, my second regret as a software engineer goes back to when I had just graduated from my coding boot camp, when I was applying to jobs, preparing for coding interviews. I wish that I had used my company, AlgoExpert, to prepare for the coding interviews. It would have saved me so much trouble.
Sort of a subtle promotional thing there, but yeah, that's fair enough, to be honest. I've not checked out AlgoExpert actually myself, but it does look alright. I'm not very interested really in trying to get into big tech and learn about advanced algorithms and data structures and stuff. It's just not really what I'm interested in, but it's pretty useful to have that. I go on Code Wars quite a bit, but anyway, let's go on.
So much pain, but alas, AlgoExpert didn't exist back then. The good news is that
it's not so subtle promotion.
It does exist today, and so you can save yourself that trouble, that pain.
At least it's advertising his own service, to be fair. That's a lot better than a lot of other YouTubers.
AlgoExpert.io and use the promo code Clem, CLEM, for a discount on the platform. Okay, of course, I'm mildly joking, not really, but my real second regret is I wish I had exposed myself to more...
Exposed yourself, lad. Where?
More back-end and infrastructure work.
More back-end exposure. Oh.
A lot of you know that when I was at Google, at Facebook, I was a front-end engineer, primarily working on the front end. On AlgoExpert, my company, I've basically only worked on the front end. Of course, I've done also like a bunch of content, but from an engineering point of view, I've only worked on the front end.
To be honest, I know what he means because like I'm also a front-end focused developer, and back-end... The back end is sort of, I'm not so familiar with it. Like when it comes to advanced database development and I'm just not as experienced in that area. I've always focused more on the visual, the GUI, the UI functionality, front end functionality. Obviously, I've gone into more experimental areas like WebXR and recently in game development. It's not really experimental, but different. But yeah, no, I understand what it means with that point.
And so my exposure to backend and infrastructure has only been from afar. I've worked alongside backend and infra engineers.
I had the same experience. I worked with very closely with a backend engineer on one of my other jobs, and it's definitely...
I've seen some of their code reviews or some of their design docs. I've consumed their APIs, but I've never been the one making the backend decisions. I've never been the one writing the backend code. Sure, I've contributed to making backend decisions. I've given some of my input for, let's say, the structure of an API, but overall, I know that this is a gap in my software engineering knowledge.
This is something I learned a lot about when I was working for Cultura, Occupy White Walls. I worked with a back-end engineer, great great engineer actually, in Siberia, Russian guy, Sasha his name was. And yeah, he basically developed all the API, which was using, and sometimes I did have to sometimes dive into that actually, so that was quite useful. So I did actually add on to it at times, but it was never my sort of area. It was more like his thing. But anyway.
Whereas on the front end, I feel very good, not a true expert, but almost like an expert. On the back end or infrastructure, I do not feel at all like an expert. And I will
that's relatable.
say the caveat to this is that there is a benefit from not having exposed myself so closely to the back end and having focused purely on the front end, which is that, I've been able to progress in my career perhaps a little bit faster. I've been able to be more productive because, there is an argument that being more specialized rather than being too, wide and spreading yourself too thin can be beneficial. But at the same time, I can't shake this feeling that I do regret not having had more exposure. I remember when I joined Facebook, I was strongly thinking of joining a backend team, but I ended up deciding against it because, in my mind, I was like, oh, this might hold me back from a career point of view because on the front end, I can just get up and running the second I'm in the code base. It'll be, super comfortable for me. In hindsight, I kind of wish that I had pursued that discomfort. But
I know what you mean. So, I mean, like, it's hard because you generally feel like front end focused, you're more, you sort of like artistic and more creative maybe in some respects, and the back end engineer is more like logical, mathematical maybe in some respects, on structures and systems. Front end still got that, obviously, of course, there's still that element, but he's making a good Clement's.
Perhaps I'll be able to do this, later on in my career. My third regret as a software engineer is actually kind of similar to the previous one. It's that I wish I had worked in more code bases. Ultimately, I have really only worked for long periods of time in 2 code bases.
That's interesting. I can't relate to that actually, to be honest. I've worked in quite a large variety of code bases, everything from charity, sort of like first sector code bases, which were often very legacy in a lot of respects as well, because charities are quite underfunded, to like startup code bases. More recently, it's been more startups. To then actually writing the stuff myself. But yeah, I mean, I think I've worked in at least serious code bases like I think 8 or 9 over the last 15, 20 years, I guess. But,
the code base that I worked on at Google, which was a front end.
I mean, he's got a good point though. To be honest, like, it's good to expose yourself to a lot of different code bases, and because you find out new ways of doing things. That's basically why you can get very stuck in a way, with a certain way of doing things in web development, and it's very good to be exposed to the new ideas and new code base ways of doing
and code base on the Google Cloud Platform product called Cloud IoT, Internet of Things, and then the Algo Expert front-end code base. And believe it or not, both of those code bases are very similar to one another. They're similar because they're both front-end, they're both written in TypeScript. One of them is in React, Algo Expert, whereas Google was in Angular, but both of them use Redux. Believe it or not, if you're familiar with front-end and Redux, we had a Redux.
I've got to just say, I've used Redux, and even though it's necessary, I hate it. I mean, I hate writing the boilerplate code for it, but it is fairly. I mean, I think it's getting less popular now, but I've not enjoyed working with Redux and about to work with in the past, to be honest.
Reduxified our Angular code base at Google, and both teams were pretty small. Like on Algo Expert, I'm only me and Simon, our front-end engineer at Google. It was just a couple of other people, and so the styles of the code base, the code bases, the paradigms used in both code bases are very similar. And it's been great. I feel very comfortable in these code bases, or at least I felt comfortable in them back when I was at Google, but it's just very similar. It hasn't really shown me a lot of what's out there. And I did get a little bit of a peek at other code bases when I was at Facebook, for example, but I was only there for a couple of months. But I remember during boot camp at Facebook, where you try a bunch of different teams, I got to see a bunch of different code bases, some of them that had been written 5 years before, 10 years before, some of them were brand new, some of them used just completely different styles because different engineers had led them or had written in them, and it was pretty daunting, pretty scary to see these very unfamiliar code bases, but I do think that there's a lot of value in making yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's 100% right there, to be honest. And it is definitely, I mean, sometimes it can be horrifying on some levels, especially if you've got like a large scale legacy code base, because it's very intimidating. Especially if you have to refactor or rewrite it. It's like, I mean, you have a starting point in some senses because, you've got ways that things are doing, but you have to improve and iterate this ways of doing things, which is often, to be honest, the most often in a way it's not the hardest thing to go in and write something from scratch. It's actually to come into something quite late and then have to refactor it. In some respects, I think that's a lot more difficult because you've got you'll have services that rely on other services and that sort of thing. But anyway, let's carry on.
By seeing other code bases, I think the best analogy that I could make here is if you are someone who has only ever lived in one part of the world, let's say just like one city, New York City or San Francisco, then your view of the world is going to be very narrow. You're going to think that everything is done a certain way, and it's only once you start to travel that you start to see that, wait, there are a lot of different ways to do the same thing. Different types of cultures and restaurants and subway systems. I don't know. I'm giving you like a few examples. Hopefully, you see how the analogy is comparable to the code base thing. But I just think that that's something that would have been very cool to have more experience with different code bases. And of course, hopefully for the rest of my career, I'll be able to experience more code bases. I've only been a software engineer for 4.5 years, so not that long. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think about. The fourth and final regret that I have as a software engineer is not taking more time to become better at Bash and Bash scripting. Now, as many of you know...
Yeah, I can identify with that. I mean, I know a little bit of... command line how to use, but it's not an expert area for me. I can use the common commands and fairly alright, but nothing special.
Bash is basically a very integral part of a software engineer's life. Most software engineers work with Bash at least a little bit in their everyday life. You open your terminal, use a couple of commands to open directories, open files, navigate through directories. But a lot of software engineers aren't really good at Bash beyond these super basic commands. And I'm going to include myself in that group of software engineers.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I'd include myself there as well. I mean, obviously I know like ls, cd, whatever, like different running, just the general commands you'd use to navigate around a file system, but I know a bit of Linux as well, like from back in the day. Sudo is God, but
engineers. And it's kind of like in part due to laziness that I didn't learn more Bash and become better at it, and in part due to other priorities. Like these days I just have other stuff that is seemingly more important to do. But it is kind of annoying because a lot of times I find myself wanting to do something in my terminal that is a little bit complicated, like editing a bunch of files based on certain patterns, or maybe looking for certain patterns again within a directory, or doing certain things that can be done with Bash scripting very elegantly, but that I just don't know how to do. And so I always find myself pinging my co-founder on Algo Expert, Antoine, who is good at Bash.
Yeah, I've just realised I'm absolutely dog shit at Bash actually. So I should probably look into that more. It's good bit.
Him. I will definitely try to do that in the medium-term future, but my recommendation would...
That's probably enough reaction for that. So that was a pretty good video. I'll slam a like on that as he... It's not a good place for it to... Ooh. Let's go on to another one. And then I'll probably just end it there. I don't want to do too many of these reaction videos. Oh, this looks interesting. Gaming. This is really short as well. I'm not really going to understand any of this because I don't know C or C++, but let's have a look. It's just probably a meme thing, isn't it, I guess? Okay, so we're getting DOS box up. I mean, so that's way too fast. I don't understand what's going on there really that much. I mean, I know obviously what if and it's a game developed to see. Kissing, it's a bit loud. Kissing the frogs kissing or something. What is it? That might be quite fun actually. I'll find some. Let's do a little organic search, and I'll maybe react to a few videos, and let's go into like JavaScript game or something like that. Just try and find. It's gonna be like. I want something a bit more. Let's have a look in the last week. So it'll be something quite random instead of I recommend stuff. There's a lot of these sort of videos. Minecraft. There's a load of these Minecraft using 3JS videos. There's 14 minutes. I'm gonna watch this tutorial. I just want to see. Game created for JavaScript 6 attacks a common one. I did that myself as well. No, let's just go out to the front page. It's going to be too long to find something. What does the algorithm want me to see? That's all that matters really. Radiohead. Okay, it's too long. I want some like takes. I want some like programming takes, you know. I don't know. I just need takes. That's what I need. Takes. Hot takes. Hot spicy takes. That's what I'm looking for. He's introducing the Icelandverse. I've seen this pop up a few times. So let's just watch this shit. Not shit. This video. Don't want to be Icelandverse. I don't know what it's going to be. Oh god. Okay. Hello.
And welcome to this very natural setting.
Jack Moss books.
Today, I want to talk about a revolutionary approach on how to connect our world without being super weird. Some said it's not possible. Some said it's out of reach. To them, we say it's already here. Seriously, look, it's right here. And what do we call this not-so-new chapter in human connectivity? The Icelandverse. Enhanced actual reality without silly-looking headsets. In our open-world experience, everything is real.
It's chilly.
And has been for millions of years. It's completely immersive. With water, it's wet.
It's like a column.
With humans to connect with. You're human, right? Isn't she funny? In the Icelandverse, there's real moss you can look at, but please don't touch. It's very delicate. Skies you can see with your eyeballs. Volcanic rocks you can caress. Really big geysers you can observe from a safe distance. Birds you can watch. They're really cute, but a bit stupid. Waterfalls you can stand near, like this one, that one, this one, that one, and even this one. Horses you can ride, with hair you can touch. The Icelandverse is a world with possibilities so endless, they'll be here forever. So join us today, or tomorrow, or whenever. We are really easygoing. Now, please enjoy our logo.
Inspired by Iceland. Okay, is that like a... anyway, I've reacted to enough things. I might do this every now and again. It's just like, it's a good thing to do when I'm a bit bored. I want to try and come up with some more tutorials soon. Watch out for that. I've got a few ideas floating in my head, but I'm a bit stuck on it at the minute. So if you have any suggestions, then please let me know. I've been NoirNerd.